Wu-tzu. In antiquity, when the yin arose, they had I Chi in the xia. When the Chou arose, they had Lu Ya, the Tai Kung Yi, in the yin. 191 thus enlightened rulers and sagacious generals who are able to get intelligent spies will invariably attain great achievements. This is the essence of the military, what the three armies rely on to move. Translator's introduction. First, planning for the state. 2, evaluating the enemy. 3rd, controlling the army, the Tao of the general. 5, responding to change. 6, stimulating the officers. Translator's introduction. Unlike the semi-legendary Sun Tzu, Wu Qi, who was also called Wu-tzu by later generations, was a famous historical figure. His exploits and achievements, both military and administrative, are portrayed as truly outstanding, and shortly after his death, his name became inextricably linked with Sun Tzu's. According to the Shexi, whenever people discussed military theory, Sun and Wu were invariably mentioned together, and Sima Qian's famous biographical chapter permanently canonized that bond. Wu Qi was a complex man of many contradictions, and even his biography in the Shexi does not depict him favorably. He was an extremely talented individual who advocated the fundamental Confucian beliefs, although his behavior visibly contradicted them. He embraced the concept of benevolence as the essential foundation for government, yet he reputedly killed his own wife. He ignored his mother's mourning rites, a heinous offense in Confucian eyes, in order to keep a vow, clearly emphasizing trustworthiness over filial emotion and its respectful expression. Although he attained great power and encouraged the development and preservation of distinctions, he personally eschewed the visible comforts available to a commanding general and shared every misery and hardship with his troops. Born about 440 BC into the tumultuous era that witnessed the initial conflicts of the incessant warfare that eventually reduced the number of power. Full states in China from 7 to 1. Wu Qi realized that states could survive only if they fostered both military strength and sound government. As a young man, he reportedly studied with 2 of the founding disciples of Confucianism, perhaps for as long as 3 years. Subsequently, he journeyed to find a receptive ear, yet lost favor even after great accomplishments. Event 2. Ally, he was murdered in Chou around 361 BC, a victim of the enmity incurred because of his draconian measures to strengthen the military and the state. According to subsequent historical writings, not only was Wu Qi never defeated in battle, but he rarely suffered the ignominy of a stalemate, while compiling a remarkable record of decisive victories against the superior forces of entrenched states. He has been widely regarded as China's first great general, a view that obviously ignores the Tai Kung and Sima Jiangxi, and has been credited with such notable achievements as governing and holding the West Ho region, pacifying Yiye, the South China region, commanding the forces of Lu to gain an overwhelming victory against Qi, fading away numerous times to thrash Qian's growing power and stabilizing the government of Chu. Thus his views and methods, to the extent that they may be preserved in Wu-tzu, are not merely theoretical, but were founded and thoroughly tested in reality. Wu-tzu's reputation for having made impressive administrative contributions, especially for instituting innovative measures and controls to organize the state and instill order, first as protector of the West River Command, Eri, and later as Prime Minister of Chu, have frequently caused him to be ranked with the famous legalist Lord Shang. One numerous anecdotes describe his emphasis on certitude, one of the few virtues he both espoused and personally embodied. Stories about him abound in works originating in the centuries after his death, such as the Chan Kuo Tse intrigues of the warring states, the Han Fei Tzu, and the Li Shi Chuan Chiu Dusra. The Wu-tzu not only constitutes one of the 7 military classics, but also has long been valued as one of the basic foundations of Chinese military thought. Although less strident than the art of war, it seriously considers all aspects of war and battle preparation and suggests generally applicable strategies for resolving certain tactical situations. Over the centuries, traditional Confucian scholars, with their classical prejudices towards style and artifice, denigrated the Wu-tzu because of the comparative simplicity of the language. They also condemned its realistic policies and perceived brutality. However, the text remains lucid and commanding. The core of the Wu-tzu was probably composed by Wu-chi himself, then expanded and revised by his disciples, perhaps from their own memories or from court records. Much of the original version appears to have been lost. What remains has been edited into a succinct, fairly systematic, and remarkably comprehensive work. Although earlier versions of the text apparently date back to at least the 4th century BC, it probably assumed its present form during the Han dynasty. Fortunately, unlike some of the military clays 6, few textual problems exist, and only small differences are found among the various editions. Naturally, some passages are common to other, presumably later works, but the focus, concepts, and stage of development are distinctly different. Nangavda. Wu-chi's life and values were closely intertwined, and because of his apparent historical importance, his biography from the Shi-chi, which was composed around 100 BC, demands inclusion here. 5. Wu-chi, a native of Wei, loved military operations. He once studied with Zheng-tzu, then went on to serve the ruler of Lu. When the state of Qi attacked Lu, Lu's ruler wanted to commission Wu-chi as a general, but since he had taken a woman of Qi as his wife, 8, he was suspicious. Thereupon Wu-chi, who wanted to become famous, killed his wife, to show he had no connection with Qi. Lu finally appointed him as a general, and in this capacity he attacked Qi, destroying their forces. Someone in Lu who hated Wu-chi said to the ruler, "Wu-chi is cruel and suspicious." When he was young, his family had accumulated 1,000 chin of gold. He traveled about seeking official appointment, but was never successful, eventually exhausting the family's resources. When members of his district laughed at him, he killed more than 30 of his detractors and then went east, through the gate of Wei's outer wall. On parting from his mother, he bit his arm so that it bled and swore an oath, "Until I become a ranking minister, I will not re-enter Wei." Then he went to serve Zheng-tzu. He had only been there a short while when his mother died, but he didn't return home. Zheng-tzu despised him for failing Lo perform the morning rites, 10 thas, and severed all relationship with him. Wu-chi then went to Lu and studied military arts in order to serve you. You doubted his intentions, so he killed his wife to obtain the post of general. Now Lu is a small state, and if it should attain a reputation for being victorious in Tai, the other feudal lords will plot against it. Moreover, Lu and Wei are brothers, so if you employ Wu-chi, you will be casting aside Wei. The ruler grew suspicious of Wu-chi and dismissed him. At that time, Wu-chi happened to hear that Marquis Wen of Wei was a worthy and wanted so serve in his court. Marquis Wen questioned Li Ko I about him. "What sort of a man is Wu-chi?" Li Ko replied, "Chi is greedy and licentious, but in the employment of troops, even the famous general Suma Jangchul 13 could not surpass him." Upon hearing this, Marquis Wen appointed him as a general. Wu-chi commanded the army in an attack on Qin, seizing 5 cities. In his position as general, Wu-chi's custom was to wear the same clothes and eat the same food as the men in the lowest ranks. When sleeping, he did not set out a mat, while on the march he did not ride a horse 14, or in a chariot. He personally packed up his leftover rations, and shared all labors and misery with the troops. Once, when one of his soldiers had a blister, he personally sucked out the pus for him. The soldier's mother heard about it and wept. Someone said to her, "Your son is only an ordinary soldier, while the general himself sucked out the pus. What is there to weep about?" The mother retorted, "That isn't it. In years past Duke Wu sucked his father's blister. His father went to war without hesitating and subsequently died at the hands of the enemy. Now Duke Wu again sucks my son's blister, so I don't know where he will die. For this reason I weep." Badinende. Because Marquis Wen felt that Wu Qi excelled in employing the army, was scrupulous and fair-handed, and able to obtain the complete allegiance of his troops, he appointed him as protector of the West River 16 Commandery to fend off the states of Qin and Han. When Marquis Wen died, Wu Qi continued to serve his son, Marquis Wu. Marquis Wu voyaged by boat down the West River. In midstream he looked back and exclaimed to Wu Qi, "Isn't it magnificent? The substantiality of the mountains and rivers, this is the jewel of Wei." Wu Qi replied that Nike, the real jewel lies in virtue, not in precipitous defiles. Formerly, the three Miao had Tungting Lake on the left and Pingli Lake on the right, but they didn't cultivate virtue and righteousness, and you obliterated them. The place where Cheech of the Xia dynasty resided had the Yellow and Chai rivers on the left, Menti and Mount Hua on the right, the cliffs of El Chue in the south, and the slopes of Yangchang to the north. But in his practice of government he didn't cultivate benevolence, and Tang displaced him. The state of Taoyin, the tyrant Chou of the Yin dynasty, had Mount Mengmen on the left, meant Tai Hang on the right, meant Chiang to the north, and the great Yellow River flowing to the south, but in his practice of government he didn't cultivate virtue, and King Wu killed him. From this perspective, the state's jewel is virtue, not the precipitousness of its defiles. If you do not cultivate virtue, all the men in the boat will comprise an enemy state. 17. "Excellent," said Marquis Wu. Thereupon he enfeoffed Wu Qi as protector of the West River Commandery, and his reputation grew enormously. Wei then established the post of minister, naming Tian Wen to the office. Wu Qi was unhappy, so he accosted Tian Wen. "Could we please discuss merit and attainments?" Tian Wen agreed. Wu Qi asked, "Who is better at commanding the three armies, causing the officers and soldiers to take pleasure in dying in battle, and ensuring that enemy states do not dare plot against us, you or me?" "I am not as capable as you," Tian Wen replied. Wu Qi then asked him, "Who is better, you or I, in administering the bureaucracy, gaining the support of the people, and filling the storehouses and arsenals?" Tian Wen again replied, "I am not as good as you." "In serving as protector of the West River Commandery, so that the Qin troops dare not establish villages in their eastern regions, while Han and Chao act submissively as honored guests, who is better?" Tian Wen acknowledged, "You are." Wu Qi then proceeded, "In all three of these you are inferior to me, yet your position has been placed above me. Why?" Tian Wen said, "The ruler is young, the state doubtful, the major ministers not yet supportive, while the common people 18 do not trust the government. At this time, should the role fall to you or to me?" After Qi was silent for a very long time, he said, "It should belong to you. This is why I am placed over you." Wu Qi then knew he was not as good as Tian Wen. After Tian Wen died, Kung Shu became minister. He had married a princess of Wei and wanted to damage Wu Qi. Kung Shu's servant said to him, "It is easy to get rid of Wu Qi." Kung Shu asked how, and his servant replied, "Wu Qi is constrained, incorruptible, and likes fame." First, you should accordingly say to Marquis Wu, Wu-Chi is a worthy, while your state is small. Moreover, you have a border area of fertile land abutting the strong state of Qin. There, for I fear Wu-Chi will not remain loyal. The Marquis will then ask, what should we do? And you should say, test him by extending Dashawari an offer of marriage with a princess. If Chi intends to stay, he will certainly accept her. If not, he will invariably decline. With this divine his intent. Then you should summon Wu-Chi and return with him, while also making the princess angry so that she treats you contemptuously. When Wu-Chi sees that the princess holds you in contempt, he will certainly decline her. Thereupon, when Wu-Chi saw the princess treat the minister of Wei Kon contemptuously, he did in fact decline Marquis Wu's offer. Marquis Wu grew suspicious and did not trust him any longer. Wu-Chi, fearing he might be charged with some offense, subsequently left and went to the state of Chu. King Tao of Chu had previously heard that Wu-Chi was a worthy, so when he arrived he appointed him as minister. Wu-Chi made the laws clear, examined the ordinances, eliminated unimportant offices, and dispersed distant royal relatives in order to nourish and support fighting men. He emphasized strengthening the army and destroying the vociferous proponents of the horizontal and vertical alliances. 19. To the south he pacified the Pai Yue. In the north he seized Chien and Tizai and forced the three Qin to withdraw. To the west he successfully attacked Chien. The other feudal lords were troubled by Chu's growing strength, while all the members of the royal family wanted to harm him. When King Tao died, the imperial relatives and chief ministers revolted and attacked Wu-Chi. He ran to the king's body and hid beneath it. When his assailants shot their arrows, striking him, they thereby struck King Tao as well. When King Tao had been buried and the prince enthroned, he had the minister of justice execute all those who had shot at Wu-Chi and also struck the king's corpse. Those that were judged guilty and executed, together with having their families exterminated, numbered more than 70. The grand historian says, the habit of the contemporary age, when referring to armies and regiments, is to always speak of Sun Tzu's 13 chapters and Wu-Chi's strategy. At this time, many people have them. Thus I have not discussed them, but instead discussed what their actions effected and established. There is a common saying, one able to perform an action cannot invariably speak about it. One able to speak about something is not invariably able to perform it. Sun Pin's plotting of strategy against Pang Qian was enlightened, but he was still unable to extricate himself from the misfortune of suffering severe. Corporeal punishment. One Wu-Chi tried to persuade Marquis Wen that the strategic advantages of power conferred by the substantiality of the terrain's configuration are not as good as virtue. However, his actions in Chu, on account of his harsh oppressiveness and the paucity of his beneficence, caused him to lose his life. Isn't it tragic? Even in death, Wu-Chi managed to execute a successful strategy and gain revenge because he knew that in trying to kill him, his enemies would desecrate the king's body and eventually be executed. Modern scholars, such as Chauncey Goodrich, troubled by the inclusion of such detrimental material as Wu-Chi killing his wife, have studied the biography in considerable detail and concluded that it is an amalgamation of the disparate, even condemnatory materials probably available to the grand historian. 22. Opinion is divided about Wu-Chi's overall historical accomplishments, with much of the biographical record being viewed as romantic embellishment, anachronistic, or simply dubious. However, given the numerous references to Wu-tzu in the extant literature from the 2 centuries following his death, it seems likely that Wu-Chi served in the capacities anew merited, and was a highly effective strategist and commander. A brief consideration of the more significant stories and anecdotes in these other writings not only provides information about the man and his character, but also indicates the important principles generally associated with his name that are illustrated prominently by his lifelong behavior. Wu-Chi, who is often mentioned with Lord Shang as emphasizing the role of law and revising government policies to strengthen the state, valued credibility, which can only be established through preserving one's word in complete sincerity, above everything. An anecdote preserved in the Han Fei Tzu, followed by Han F. Tzu's comments, portrays this paramount commitment. Wu Chi went out and happened to encounter an old friend. He stopped him and invited him to eat dinner with him. The friend replied, "I will. In a short time I will go back and eat with you." Wu-tzu said, "I will wait for you to dine." By nightfall the friend had not come, but Wu-chi waited for him without eating. Early the next morning he had someone seek out his friend, and only when the friend had come back did he eat with him. Han Fei Tzu's comment: when small acts of faith are achieved, great faith is established. Therefore the wise ruler accumulates good faith. When rewards and punishments are not trusted, prohibitions and ordinances will not be effected. The explanation is seen in Duke Wen attacking Yuan and Qi Cheng rescuing the starving. For this reason, Wu Chi waited for his friend to eat. Irupati Mundravdu. Another incident from the Han Fei Tzu portrays Wu Chi as divorcing his wife for a minor transgression, rather than killing her, as reported in the Shichi biography, in order to preserve his credibility. His brother-in-law Ratio analyzes this action in terms of a zealous commitment to the law. Wu Chi, who was a native of Zhouxi in Wei, had his wife weave a silk band. When he measured it and found it to be narrower than desired, he had her change it. "I will," she said. When it was complete, he measured it again, but the result was still not accurate. Wu Chi was enraged. His wife replied, "When I began I set the warp, and it could not be changed." Wu-tzu sent her away. She then asked her older brother to seek her readmission, but her brother said, "Wu-chi is a man of law. He works with the laws so that he may attain great achievements in a large state. Therefore he must first put the laws into practice with his wife, and thereafter implement them in government. You have no hope of seeking to return." His wife's younger brother was well favored by Wei's ruler, so she sought the ruler's intercession with Wu-tzu on her behalf. Wu-tzu did not listen, but instead left Wei and went to Qingchu. Yet another version of the story perceives her dismissal as resulting from working too assiduously, thereby surpassing, rather than falling short of, what Wu-chi had required. Wu-chi, showing his wife a silk band, said, "Weave a silk band for me, making it like this." When it was finished he compared them, and the one she had made was especially good. Wu-chi said, "I had you weave a silk band to make it like this one, but now this is especially good. How is that?" His wife replied, "The materials employed are alike, but I concentrated on making it better." Wu-chi said, "It is not what I said to do." He had her change her clothes and return to her family. Her father went to request that he take her back, but Wu-chi said, "In the Chi family there are no empty words." Apostrophe. This explanation is in full accord with the legalist emphasis on not exceeding one's prescribed role, which is generally proclaimed a canonical virtue by military thinkers within the context of battlefield situations. Another cardinal doctrine of the strategists is the inviolate nature of rewards and punishments because they embody and symbolize the credibility of the administrative system. To motivate men successfully requires not only both rewards and punishments, but also the absolute certainty that these will invariably be implemented in every single instance. Wu-tzu believed unflinchingly in the power of the twin handles, as Lord Shang termed them, and especially in the ability of rewards to motivate men so strongly that they would risk their lives and chance everything. Although instruction, organization, training, and the development of a sense of shame should precede any manipulation of the human spirit, the underlying effect of credibility in attaining a desired objective is well illustrated by the following incident. When Wu-Chi was serving as protector of the West River Commandery, the state of Cheyenne had a small fortified watchtower near the border. Wu-Chi wanted to attack it, for if he did not eliminate it, it would be extremely harmful to the farmers. However, it was not worth summoning armored troops to eliminate it. Therefore, he leaned a carriage shaft against the north gate and issued an ordinance, which stated, "Anyone who can move this outside the south gate will be rewarded with superior lands and an excellent house." For a while, no one moved it. Then someone did succeed in moving it. Upon his return from the south gate, Wu-Chi rewarded him in accord with the ordinance. Shortly thereafter he set a picul of red beans outside the east gate, and issued an ordinance which stated, "Anyone able to move this outside the west gate will be rewarded as in the first case." The people competed to move it. Then Wu-Chi sent down an order. "Tomorrow, when we attack the tower, whoever can ascend it first will be infuffed as Taifu 26th Foch and rewarded with superior lands and a house." The people fought to a race to the tower, attacking and seizing it in a single morning. The Shichi biography states that Wu-Chi studied with Tseng-tsu. However, because this is chronologically impossible, it was probably Tseng-tsu's son Tseng-shen, with whom Wu-Chi may have studied for as long as 3 years. 28. If the biography is credible, and Tseng-shen condemned Wu-Chi for blatantly violating the precepts of filial behavior, one of the cornerstones of Tseng-tsu's recension of Confucianism, Wu-Chi may have rejected formal studies in favor of military pursuits, which were presumably his first inclination. However, throughout the Wu-tzu he advocates policies based on 4 fundamental Confucian virtues: benevolence, righteousness, the forms of propriety, tai, and the way, tao, of heaven. This accords with the new real idea of the Warring States period, wherein state governments had become significantly dependent on the willing consent and participation of the populace in any military enterprise. 29. The famous, probably fabricated discussion with Marquis Wu, while they were floating down the West River, which is recorded in other texts as well, clearly expresses Wu-Chi's belief in virtue rather than in simple strategic advantage. Another interview with the Marquis at the start of his reign reflects the same concern, but it is coupled with an advocacy of practicing accessible government while retaining political power and preventing the nobles from encroaching on the people. Marquis Wu asked Wu-tzu about the initial reign year. Wu-tzu replied, "It is said that the ruler of a state must be cautious about the beginning." How does one go about being cautious about the beginning? Make it upright. How does one make it upright? Make wisdom enlightened. If wisdom is not enlightened, how can you perceive the upright? Listen widely and select from what you hear so as to make wisdom enlightened. For this reason in antiquity, when the ruler first held court, the Ta-fu each had one speech, the officers one audience, and if the common people requested admittance, they would be heard. If the nobles made any inquiries, they would certainly be answered, and they would not refuse any who came from the 4 quarters. This can be termed not plugged up or obscured. In apportioning salaries, they made certain to extend them to everyone, while in the employment of punishments, they were invariably accurate. The ruler's mind had to be benevolent. He thought of the ruler's profit and the elimination of the people's harm. This can be termed not losing the people. The ruler personally had to be upright, the intimate ministers carefully selected. The Ta-fu could not hold more than one office concurrently, while the handles for controlling the people did not lie with one clan. This can be referred to as not losing the balance of authority, chi'ian, and strategic power, shi. This is the meaning of the spring and autumn annals and the basis of the initial rain year, mupadavde. A dramatic passage in the Li Shi Chun Chiu describes Wu Chi's prophetic words as he departed from Wei, providing another version of the story of slander incorporated in the Shi Chi biography. When Wu Chi governed the area outside the West River, Wang To slandered him to Marquis Wu of Wei. Marquis Wu had an emissary summon him. When Wu Chi reached the gate on the far shore, he stopped the carriage and rested. As he looked toward the West River, several tears fell from his eyes. His servant addressed him. I have observed your intentions. You have cast aside the world, as if throwing away a pair of straw sandals, yet now as you leave the West River region, you weep. Why is it? Wu Chi wiped the tears away and replied, You do not understand. If the ruler truly knew me, and had me exhaust my abilities, Qian could certainly be destroyed, and with the West River region he could become a true king. But now the ruler listens to the ideas of slanderers and does not know me. It will not be long before the West River region belongs to Qian. From henceforth the state of Wei will diminish. Wu Qi subsequently left Wei and entered Chu. Day by day Wei diminished, while Qian grew greater every day. This is what Wu Qi saw first and wept about. 1. Wu Qi's radical emotional commitment to his political beliefs and his desire to exert himself on behalf of the state clearly manifest themselves in such passages. Several incidents provide glimpses of Wu Qi's activities in Chu, a pair, Entley confirming that King Tao quickly entrusted him with power and influence, seeking to strengthen the central government and thereby the state and the army. Wu Qi proposed policies that invariably antagonized entrenched interests. Formerly, Wu Qi instructed King Tao of Chu about Chu's customs. The chief ministers are too powerful, the hereditary lords too numerous. In this sort of situation, above they press upon the ruler, while below they oppress the Pio Plei. This is the way, Tao, to impoverish the state and weaken the army. It would be better to take back all ranks and emoluments from the hereditary lords after 3 generations, diminish the salaries and allowances of the 100 officials, and reduce all unnecessary offices in order to support selected, well-trained offi. Cares, King Tao had implemented his suggestion for a year when he died. Wu Chi was then torn apart in Chao. 32. Another version of the story in the Li Shi Chun Chiu, which dates from the 3rd century BC, provides a further explanation of Wu Chi's policy to populate the countryside and emasculate the power of the stagnant nobility. Wu Chi addressed the king of Chu. What Chu has a surplus of is land, but what is insufficient is people. Now if your lordship takes what is insufficient to increase what is in surplus, then I cannot do anything. Thereupon the king dared the nobles to go out and fill the vast empty lands. Thiev all found this to be extremely bitter. When the king of Chu died, the nobles all came to the capital. The king's corpse was lying in the upper hall. The nobles, acting together, shot arrows at Wu Chi. Wu Chi yelled, I will show you how I use weapons. He pulled out an arrow and ran, prostrating himself over the corpse. He stuck the arrow in and yelled out, The ministers are revolting against the king. Then Wu-Chi died. However, according to Qing law, anyone who exposed a weapon before the king's body should be subject to the severest penalty, with the extirpation of their families to 3 degrees. Wu-Chi's wisdom can certainly be said to have been acute. Chinese tradition has long held that the military arts belong to the category contrary virtue, a concept perhaps originally espoused by the mythy Cao Lao-tzu and later expounded in many of the military writings, including the Wu-tzu. 34. Consequently, the longer one's involvement and the more extensive one's experience, the more likely it becomes that disaster will befall the individual. This is made clear in 2 fictional interviews found in the Spuo Yuan. When Wu Qi was serving as protector of Yuan during his tour of inspection of the commandery, he reached Shi, where he asked Chu Yiqiu, "The king, not knowing that I am a petty man, has made me protector of Yuan. Sir, how would you instruct me?" Duke Chu did not reply. After a year, the king made him director of ordnances. During his tour of inspection of the commandery, he reached Shi. He asked Yiqiu, "I inquired of you, but you did not instruct me. Now the king, not knowing I am a petty man, has made me director of ordnances. Sir, would you examine how I'm acting?" Duke Chu said, "What are you going to do?" Wu Chi said, "I am going to level the ranks of nobility in Chu, and even their emoluments, reduce what is in excess and continue what is insufficient, and polish the armor and weapons in order to contend for all under heaven at the appropriate time." Duke Chu said, "I have heard that in the past those that excelled at governing states did not change the old nor alter the usual. Now you are about to level the ranks of Chu's nobility and even their emoluments, reduce what is surplus and continue what is insufficient. This is changing the old and altering the usual. Moreover, I have heard that weapons are inauspicious implements and that conflict is a contrary virtue. Now you secretly plot the contrary virtue and love to employ inauspicious implements. Reaching out for what men abandon is the extreme of contrariness. Implementing licentious and dissolute affairs is not advantageous. Moreover, when you employed the troops of Lu, you should not have gained your intentions in Chai, but you realized them. When you employed the troops of Wei, you should not have been able to realize your intentions against Ch'ain, but you gained them. I have heard it said, if one is not the man for disaster, he cannot complete disaster. I formerly found it strange that my ruler had frequently acted contrary to the Wei, Tao of heaven, but up to now not met with any misfortune. Alas, it was probably waiting for you. Wu Chi fearfully said, "Can it still be altered?" Duke Chu said, "It cannot." Wu Chi said, "I plan on behalf of others." Duke Chu said, "A prisoner whose punishment has been determined cannot change himself. You would best be honest and sincerely implement the affairs of government, for the state of Chu has nothing more valued than raising up the worthy." From a historical perspective that had witnessed Qin's slow evolution to power and subsequent meteoric collapse, the milieu that saw the rise of state Confucianism and the pervasive expression of Taoism in such syncretic texts as the Huainan Tzu gave voice to a condemnatory view. On behalf of Qin, Lord Shang instituted the mutual guarantee laws, and the 100 surnames were resentful. On behalf of Chu, Wu Qi issued orders to reduce the nobility and their emoluments, and the meritorious ministers revolted. Lord Shang in establishing laws, and Wu Qi in employing the army, were the best in the world. But Lord Shang's laws eventually caused the loss of Qian, for he was perspicacious about the traces of the brush and knife. 36. But did not know the foundation of order and disorder. Wu Qi, on account of the military, weakened Chu. He was well practiced in such military affairs as deploying formations. but did not know the balance of authority. Cheyenne involved in court warfare. Mundram. From such passages, it appears that Wu-Chi actually wielded significant political power and tried to implement typically legalist reforms. Determining whether he enjoyed such influence in ways central government is more problematic, because although Li Ko and other ministers apparently embarked on similar programs, Wu Chi's administrative impact and power were ably confined to the West River region, where he may have been virtual dictator. Need for military forces. Wu Chi lived during the period in which warfare was becoming increasingly specialized. Bronze weapons had attained the peak of their development, and bronze swords and numerous iron weapons had begun to appear. Chariots, which were still manned by 3 men, driver, howman, and spearman, and drawn by 4 horses, theoretically continued to provide the fundamental offensive weapon, although they were diminishing in effectiveness and were perhaps being relegated to functioning as transport and as a command platform. 38. Use of crossbows had just become widespread, and armies were now composed of conscripted commoners, and the She knights, who were now officers who had previously shouldered the burden of fighting. However brief the time of Wu Chi's devotion to formal Confucian stud-IEs, it apparently constituted a formative period during which he absorbed the fundamental beliefs he later propounded as essential to good government. However, although he was a strong proponent of benevolence and righteousness, Wu-tzu equally stressed military strength and preparation. Without an effective fighting force, the Confucian virtues would become hollow mockeries and evil would dominate the world. In antiquity, the ruler of the Cheongsang clan cultivated virtue but neglected military affairs, thereby leading to the extinction of his state. The ruler of the Yuhu clan relied on his masses and loved courage, and thus lost his ancestral altars. The enlightened ruler, observing this, will certainly nourish culture and virtue within the domestic sphere, while, in response to external situations, putting his military preparations in order. Thus, when opposing an enemy, if you do not advance, you have not attained righteousness. When the dead lie stiff, and you grieve for them, you have not attained benevolence. Planning for the state. Accordingly, the commanding general must be selected carefully and must be a man of complete and diverse talents who is capable of effectively directing both military and civilian administrations. Naturally, courage is basic, but other characteristics such as wisdom and self-control are emphatically required. Measure in all matters. In Wu-tzu Sera, the army depended heavily on the horse for its overall mobility and for powering its focal assault weapon, the chariot. Consequently, Wu Chi stressed that the enlightened management of horses was primary and that men were secondary. However, certain vital principles apply to both, such as ensuring proper nourishment and appropriate eating times, adequate rest periods, the erection of temporary shelters, and the implementation of extensive ongoing training. All the equipment for the army, and especially that for the horses, must be of good quality and kept in proper repair. Only then would the army be adequately prepared for its mission and the men given the means to execute their orders without the distraction and hindrance of material failure. People as the basis. Because of the shift from warfare fought by the nobility to mass mobilization and reliance on a basically civilian army, the strong support and willing alliance of the people became essential. Wu Chi therefore advocated enlightened Confucian policies that would provide the people with adequate material welfare, gain their emotional support, and inculcate the basic virtues. When impositions are light and the government visibly expresses its concern for the people, the populace will respond and the state can withstand external challenges. harmony, which can then be forged, must be present in the state, the army, the formations, and among the men themselves. Training and unification. Harmony and organization are counterparts. Without harmony, the organization will not be cohesive, but without organization, harmony is ineffectual. Wu-tzu only briefly touched on the civilian hierarchy necessary to provide this basic organization. He mainly emphasized the need for order and distinct tie-ins and urged the selection and appointment of worthy men. Self-reliance on the part of those at the pinnacle of government can only lead to disaster, whereas accepting wise counsel results in victory. The means required to attain a disciplined, effective fighting force are quite simple. Organize properly, train extensively, and motivate thoroughly. Fundamental concepts and strategies. The present text of the Wu-tzu consists of 6 chapters focusing on topics critical to military affairs: planning for the state, evaluating the enemy, controlling the army, the yao of the general, responding to change, and stimulating the officers. Although none of the sections concentrate solely on a single topic because strategic considerations are interspersed throughout, these traditional chapter headings essentially depict the scope of the respective subject matter. Thereafter, it becomes a question of strategy and tactics, and most of Wu-tzu's book is devoted to military matters such as the composition of units, methods of control, formations, and the selection of men. He also focuses on general questions of training based on the traditional composition of the 3 armies and their employment in normal formations. Repetitive train. Ing furnishes the means for coordinated, articulated movement on the battlefield. Solidarity provides the possibility of effecting strategy, whereas disorder dooms one's tactics and turns the conflict into a shambles. A small, well-disciplined force can usually defeat a numerically superior one if the latter lacks cohesion and direction. All the forces should be completely integrated and immediately responsive to the commands of one man. Then the army will not succumb to battle pressure but will emerge victorious. Selection, evaluation, and motivation of men. Men should be selected, evaluated, and assigned duties, including both combat specialties and administrative positions that are appropriate to their individual talents and expertise. Because attitude and motivation are critical, Wu-tzu suggested policies that would consciously employ his psychological insights to forge a spirited fighting force. Given a settled, well-treated populace, the essential catalyst would be shame, because men striving to avoid shame would prefer death in battle to living ignominiously. On the positive side, being committed to fighting and to dying in battle would ensure the survival not only of the individual soldier but of the entire army. In contrast to the famous legalist thinkers of the Warring States period, Wu-tzu felt that by themselves, rewards and punishments would be unreliable and inadequate to guarantee discipline and elicit the desired forms of behavior. Excessive rewards could easily prove counterproductive, empower aging individual rather than coherent unit action, stimulating the soldiers to break ranks in their personal quests for glory and profit. The imposition of extremely strict punishments to constrain discontent would ultimately prove similarly ineffective, because the offenders would simply flee rather than face the painful consequences of failure or defeat. Only when all measures were properly implemented, including honoring and sustaining the families of those who died in combat, would a disciplined, spirited, strongly motivated force result. Waging war and engaging in battle. The key to victory is impartially assessing the situation, including relative strength, to discern and develop potential tactical advantages. Wu-tzu provides extensive instructions and techniques for evaluating the enemy and its commander and correlates national character with fighting qualities. He also analyzes general classes of battlefield situations in terms of their potential, elucidating a series in which superiority dictates attacking and another in which withdrawing and defending are advisable. Finally, he considers a number of circumstances in which the enemy either enjoys a significant advantage or encounters difficulty due to terrain, weather, or other adverse conditions, and he recommends countermeasures. Deviations from the standards of good order, training, material supply, and similar factors create the requisite opening for attack. Any sign of internal disorder or disaffection, any character flaw, or excessive strength in an enemy commander promises an exploitable opportunity. Spies should ferret out vital information, and probing attacks should be undertaken to discover the enemy's tactics and degree of integrity. Probable combat behavior can be extrapolated from national character and regional differences, and tactics can be developed for predictable responses. Some circumstances, such as confronting an exhausted enemy, are remarkably clear and require that the commander initiate the aggressive movements without hesitation, whereas others indicate that engaging the enemy would be folly. The well-ordered, rested, integrated, entrenched, and properly commanded forces of an enemy state are to be avoided until feints, deception, and other techniques can be brought to bear. Certain types of terrain and disadvantageous circumstances should also be treated with caution unless they can be turned to advantage. Armies that are outnumbered or in difficulty must make every effort to utilize the natural advantages of confined terrain, inclement weather, and water. In command, he fought 76 major battles with the other feudal lords, winning sweeping victories in 64 of them and faring no worse than a draw in the remainder. He expanded Wei's land in all 4 directions, broadening its territory some 1,000 li. All these were Wu-tzu's accomplishments. 1 point planning for the state. Wu-tzu, wearing the distinctive garb of a Confucian, had an audience with Marquis Wen of Wei to discuss the strategic crux of warfare. Marquis Wen said, "I do not like military affairs." Wu-tzu replied, "From the visible, I can fathom the concealed. From the past I can discern the future. How can your lordship say this topic does not accord with his thoughts? Right now, throughout the 4 seasons, you have the skins of slaughtered animals covered with vermilion lacquer, painted with variegated colors, and embellished with glistening images of rhinoceros, osses, and elephants. Wearing them in winter one would not be warm. Wearing them in summer one would not be cool. You make long spear-tipped halberds of 24 feet and short spear-tipped halberds of 12 feet. Your leather-armored chariots block the doors, their wheels are covered and the hubs protected. One looking at them, they are certainly not beautiful to the eye. Riding in them to hunt, they are certainly not mobile. One do not know how you use them. If you are preparing them to advance into battle or withdraw and protect the state, without seeking men capable of employing them, the situation is comparable to a nesting hen rushing at a fox or a puppy attacking a tiger. Even though they have great fighting spirit, they will die. In antiquity, the ruler of the Changsang clan cultivated virtue but neglected military affairs, thereby leading to the extinction of his state. The ruler of the Yuhu clan relied on his masses and loved courage, and thus lost his ancestral altars. The enlightened ruler, observing this, will certainly nourish culture and virtue within the domestic sphere, while in response to external situations, putting his military preparations in order. Thus, when opposing an enemy force, if you do not advance, you have not attained righteousness. When the dead lie stiff and you grieve for them, you have not attained benevolence. Thereupon Marquis Wen personally arranged a mat for Wu-Chi, and his wife presented him with a goblet of wine. The Duke then made a sacrifice in the ancestral temple, announcing his intended employment of Wu-Chi, and posted him as general-in-chief to protect the West River Commandery, while Wu-tzu said, in antiquity those who planned government affairs would invariably first instruct the 100 surnames and gain the affection of the common people. There are 4 disharmonies. If there is disharmony in the state, you can not put the army into the field. If there is disharmony within the army, you cannot deploy into formations. If you lack harmony within the formations, you cannot advance into battle. If you lack cohesion during the conduct of the battle, you cannot score a decisive victory. Dusra. For this reason, when a ruler who has comprehended the way, Tao, is about to employ his people, he will first bring them into harmony, and only thereafter embark on great affairs. He will not dare rely solely on his own plans, but will certainly announce them formally in the ancestral temple, divine their prospects by the great tortoise shell, and seek their confirmation in heaven and the seasons. Only if they are all auspicious will he proceed to mobilize the army. Moonram. Because the people know the ruler values their lives and is sorrowed by their deaths. When such circumstances arise, and they must confront danger with him, the officers will consider death while advancing glorious, but life gained through retreating disgraceful. Wu-tzu said, now the way, Tao, is the means by which one turns back to the foundation and returns to the beginning. Righteousness is the means by which to put affairs into action and realize accomplishments. Plans are the means by which to keep harm distant and gain profit. The essence provides the constraints by which to preserve duty and conserve achievements. Now, if behavior does not accord with the way, Tao Jie, and actions do not accord with righteousness, but instead one dwells in magnificence and enjoys nobility, disaster will inevitably befall him. For this reason, the sage rests the people in the way Tao, orders them with righteousness, moves them with the forms of propriety, and consoles them with benevolence. Cultivate these 4 virtues, and you will flourish. Neglect them, and you will decline. Thus, when Chiang Tong extirpated the evil tyrant Chie, Chie's people rejoiced, and when King Wu of Chou attacked the vile King Chu of the Yin dynasty, the people of Yin did not condemn him. Because their actions accorded with heaven and man, they were able to succeed. Wu-tzu said, in general, to govern the state and order the army, you must instruct them with the forms of propriety, stimulate them with righteousness, and cause them to have a sense of shame. For when men have a sense of shame in the greatest degree, it will be sufficient to wage war, while in the least degree it will suffice to preserve the state. Asterisk. Now, being victorious in battle is easy, but preserving the results of victory is difficult. Thus it is said that among the states under heaven that engage in warfare, those that garner 5 victories will meet with disaster. Those with 4 victories will be exhausted. Those with 3 victories will become hegemons. Those with 2 victories will be kings, and those with 1 victory will become emperors. For this reason, those who have conquered the world through numerous victories are extremely rare, while those who thereby perished are many. Wu-tzu said, in general, the reasons troops are raised are 5, to contend for fame, to contend for profit, from accumulated hatreds, from internal disorder, and from famine. The names of the armies 6 Daotu are also 5, righteous army, Rajai Foyoi, strong army, Query, hard army, Query, fierce army, Query, and contrary army. Soup. Pressing the violently perverse and rescuing the people from chaos is termed righteousness. Relying on the strength of the masses to attack is termed strong. Mobilizing the army out of anger is termed hard. Abandoning the forms of propriety and greedily seeking profit is termed fierce. While the country is in turmoil and the people are exhausted, embarking on military campaigns and mobilizing the masses is termed contrary. These 5 each have an appropriate way. Tao J. In the case of the righteous, you must use propriety to subjugate them. Toward the strong, you must be deferential to subjugate them. Against the hard, you must use persuasive language to subjugate them. Against the fierce, you must employ deceit to subjugate them. Against the contrary, you must use the tactical balance of power, Wo Cheyun, to subjugate them. Marquis Wu asked, could I hear about the Wei Tao for ordering the troops, evaluating 7 men, and making the state secure? Wu-Chi replied, the enlightened kings of antiquity always exerted every effort to maintain the forms of propriety between themselves and their ministers, manifest the distinctions of rank, settle and assemble the officials and people, accord with their customs to instruct them, and select and recruit the talented in or dare to prepare for the unexpected. In the past, Duke Huan of Chai 8 enlisted the support of 50,000 men and thereby attained hegemony over the feudal lords. Duke Wen of Qin summoned 40,000 men to serve as his lead troops, and there, after realized his intention of becoming hegemon, Duke Mu of Qin organized 30,000 men into penetrating formations and subdued neighboring enemies. Thus, the ruler of a strong state must evaluate his people. Among the people, those who have courage and strength should be assembled into one unit. Those who take pleasure in advancing into battle and exerting their strength to manifest their loyalty and courage should be assembled into another unit. Those who can climb high and traverse far, who are nimble and fleet, should be assembled into a unit. Officials of the king who have lost their positions and want to show their merit to their ruler should be assembled into a unit. Those who abandoned their cities or left their defensive positions and want to eradicate the disgrace should also be assembled into a unit. These 5 will constitute the army's disciplined elite troops, with 3,000 such men. From within one can strike out and break any encirclement, or from without break into any city and slaughter the defenders. Divyadi Marquis Wu inquired, I would like to hear about the Wei Tao for Mach in battle formations invariably stable, defenses inevitably solid, and victory in battle certain. Wu-Chi replied, this can immediately be made clear, but why ask only about this? If you are able to have worthy men hold high positions and the unworthy occupy low positions, then your battle formations will already be stable. If the people are settled in their farming and homes and are attached to their local authorities, then your defenses will already be solid. When the 100 surnames all acclaim my lord and condemn neighboring states, then in battle you will already be victorious. Once, when Marquis Wu was planning government affairs, none of his numerous ministers could equal him. After dismissing the court, he had a happy, self-satisfied look. Wu-Chi entered and said, once in antiquity, when King Chuang of Chu was planning state affairs, he discovered none of his ministers could equal his talents. After he had dismissed the court, he wore a trowel-bled countenance. Duke Shen inquired, why does your lordship have a troubled countenance? He replied, I have heard it said that there is no lack of sages in the world, and no shortage of worthies in a state. One who can get them to be his teachers will be a king, while one who has them as his friends can become a hegemon. Now I am not talented, yet none of my minname Isters can even equal me in ability. Our state of Chu is in deep trouble. This is what the king of Chu found troublesome, yet you are pleased by it. I therefore dare to be fearful. Marquis Wu immediately looked embarrassed. Patavda. 2. Evaluating the enemy. Marquis Wu addressed Wu Qi. At present, Qin coerces me on the west, Chu encircles me in the south, Chao collides with me in the north, Qi encroaches on us in the east, Yen cuts off my rear, and Han occupies land 2. The front. Defending against the troops of 6 nations in all 4 directions, our strategic configurations of power Ishi is extremely disadvantageous. I am worried. What can be done about this? Wu Qi replied, in general, first being cautious is the true treasure in the way, Tao, for ensuring the security of the state. As you have now awakened to the trouble, disaster can be kept away. Let me discuss the character and customs of these 6 countries. 1-1. Although Qi's battle array is dense in number, it is not solid. That of Qi'in is dispersed, with the soldiers preferring to fight individually. Chu's formations have good order, but they cannot long maintain their positions. Yen's formations are adept at defense, but they are not mobile. 12. The battle arrays of the 3 Qin are well controlled, but they prove useless. Now Qi's character is hard, their country is prosperous, the ruler and ministers are arrogant and extravagant and insulting to the common people. The government is expansive, but salaries are inequitable. Each formation is of 2 minds, with the front being heavy and the rear light. Thus, while they are dense, they are not stable. The way, Tao, to attack them is to divide them into 3, harrying and pursuing the left and right, coercing and following them, for then their formations can be destroyed. Qin's character is strong, the land treacherous, and the government severe. Their rewards and punishments are believed in, the people never yield, but instead are all fiery and contentious. Thus they scatter and individually engage in combat. The way, Tao, to attack them is to first entice them with profits, for their soldiers are greedy and will abandon their generals to pursue them. Capitalizing on their misjudgment, you can hunt down their scattered ranks, establish ambushes, take advantage of the moment, and then their generals can be captured. Chu's character is weak, its lands broad, its government troubling to the people, and its people weary. Thus, while they are well ordered, they do not long maintain their positions. The way, Tao, to attack them is to suddenly strike and cause chaos in the encampments. First snatch away their Qi, lightly 13 advancing and then quickly retreating, tiring and laboring them, never actually joining battle with them. Then their army can be defeated. Yen's character is sincere and straightforward. Its people are careful. They love courage and righteousness and rarely practice deception in their plans. Thus they will defend their positions but are not mobile. The way, Tao, to attack them is to strike and press them, insult them, and then put distance between you. Then race and get behind them so that their upper ranks will be doubtful and their lower ranks fearful. Be cautious about our chariots and cavalry, avoiding conflict on the open road, and then their general can be captured. The 3 Qin are central countries. Their character is harmonious and their governments equitable. The populace is weary from battle, but experienced in arms, and they have little regard for their generals. Salaries are meager, and as their officers have no commitment to fight to the death, they are ordered but useless. The way, Tao, to attack them is to press points in their formations, and when large numbers appear, oppose them. When they turn back, pursue them in order to wear them out. That then is the strategic configuration of power shares in these countries. Within the army you must have soldiers with the courage of tigers, the strength to easily lift tripods, and the fleetness of barbarian horses. To attack their flags and seize their generals, you must have men with such abilities If you have men such as these, select and segregate them into special units. Fa, vor, and honor them. They are referred to as the army's fate. Those who are expert in the use of the 5 weapons, 14, who are strong and quick and are intent on swallowing the enemy should be given rank and prominence, for they can make victory decisive. If you are generous to their parents, wives, and children, encourage them with rewards, and awe them with punishments, these strong soldiers, when in formation, will solidly hold their positions for a long time. If you can discern and evaluate men such as these, you can attack a force double your strength. Marquis Wu exclaimed, "Good!" Wu-tzu said, "In general, when evaluating the enemy, there are 8 conditions under which one engages in battle without performing divination, பதினைந்து. First, in violent winds and extreme cold, they arise early and are on the march while barely awake, breaking ice to cross streams, unfearing of any hardship, பதினாறு. Second, in the burning heat of midsummer, they arise late and without delay press forward in haste, through hunger and thirst, concentrating on attaining far-off objectives. Third, the army has been out in the field for an extended period. Their food supplies are exhausted, the 100 surnames are resentful and angry, and numerous baleful portents have arisen, with the superior officers being unable to squash their effects. Fourth, the army's resources have already been exhausted. Firewood and hay are scarce, the weather frequently cloudy and rainy, and even if they wanted to plunder for supplies, there is nowhere to go. Fifth, the number mobilized is not large, the terrain and water not advantageous, the men and horses both sick and worn out, and no assistance comes from their allies. Sixth, the road is far and the sun setting. The officers and men have labored long and are fearful. The hay are tired and have not eaten. Having cast aside their armor, they are resting. Seventh, the generals are weak, the officials irresponsible, the officers and troops are not solid. The 3 armies are frequently frightened, and the forces lack any assistance. Fi, their formations are not yet settled, their encampment is not yet finished, or they are traversing dangerous territory and narrow defiles, half concealed and half exposed. In these 8 conditions, attack them without any doubts. There are 6 circumstances in which, without performing divination, you should avoid conflict. First, the land is broad and vast, the people wealthy and numerous. Second, the government loves the people, the ruler's beneficence extends and flows to all of them. I heard rewards are trusted, punishments based on investigation, and both are invariably implemented in a timely fashion. Fourth, people are ranked according to their military accomplishments. They award official positions to the worthy and employ the able. Fifth, their forces are massive, and their weapons and armor are all first-rate. Sixth, they have the assistance of all their neighbors and the support of a powerful state. In general, in these situations, you are not a match for the enemy, so without doubt, avoid them. This is what is meant by seeing possibility and advancing, knowing difficulty and withdrawing. Marquis Wu inquired, "From external observation of the enemy, I would like to know their internal character. From studying their advance, know at what point they will stop in order to determine victory and defeat. May one hear about this?" Wu-chi replied, "If the enemy approaches in reckless disarray, unthinking, if their flags and banners are confused and in disorder, and if the men and horses frequently look about, then one unit can attack 10 of theirs, invariably causing them to be helpless." If the feudal lords have not yet assembled, ruler and ministers are not yet in agreement, ditches and embankments not yet complete, prohibitions and orders not yet issued, and the three armies clamoring, wanting to advance, but being unable to, wanting to retreat, but not daring to, then you can attack with half the enemy's force, and never lose in 100 encounters. Marquis Wu asked, "Is there a way, Tao, by which the enemy can invariably be attacked?" Wu-Chi said, "In employing the army you must ascertain the enemy's voids and strengths, and then race to take advantage of his endangered points. When the enemy has just arrived from afar and their battle formations are not yet properly deployed, they can be attacked. If they have eaten, but not yet established their encampment, they can be attacked. If they are running about wildly, they can be attacked. If they have labored hard, they can be attacked. If they have not yet taken advantage of the terrain, they can be attacked. When they have lost the critical moment and not followed up on opportunities, they can be attacked. When they have traversed a great distance and the rear guard has not yet had time to rest, they can be attacked. When fording rivers and only half of them have crossed, they can be attacked. On narrow and confined roads, they can be attacked. When their flags and banners move about chaotically, they can be attacked. When their formations frequently move about, they can be attacked. When a general is separated from his soldiers, they can be attacked. When they are afraid, they can be attacked. In general, in circumstances such as these, select crack troops to rush on them, divide your remaining troops, and continue the assault, pressing the attack swiftly and decisively. At 2. Third, controlling the army. Marquis Wu asked, in employing the troops, what is primary? Wu-Chi replied, first make clear the 4 principles of lightness, the 2 of heaviness, and the 1 of belief. The Duke asked, what do you mean? He replied, you should arrange the employment of terrain so that it will be easy for the horses so that they will easily pull the chariots so that they will easily convey the men, and the men so that they will easily engage in battle. If you are clear about treacherous and easy ground, then the terrain will be light for the horses. If they have hay and grain at the proper times, the horses will easily pull the chariots. If the axles are well greased, the chariots will easily convey the men. If the weapons are sharp and armor sturdy, the men will easily engage in battle. For advancing, there should be generous rewards; for retreating, heavy penalties, and they should both be properly implemented, so that they will be believed in. If your a nation can realize this, it will be the key to victory. 18. Marquis Wu asked, what measures will ensure the soldiers will be victorious? Wu-Chi replied, Control 19 is foremost. Marquis Wu again asked, it is not large numbers? If clause and orders are not clear, rewards and punishments not trusted, when sounding the gongs will not cause them to halt or beating the drum to advance, then even if you had 1,000,000 men, of what use would they be? What is meant by control is that when stationary in camp they observe the forms of propriety, and when in action they are awesome. When they advance they cannot be withstood, when they withdraw they cannot be pursued. Their advancing and withdrawing are measured. The left and right flanks respond to the signal flags. Even if broken off from the main order, they preserve their formations. Even if scattered, they will reform lines. They will hold together in peace. They will hold together in danger. Their number can be assembled together, but cannot be forced apart. They can be employed, but they cannot be exhausted. No matter where you can dispatch them, no one under heaven will be able to withstand them. They are called the troops of a father and son. 20. Wu-Tzu said, in general, the way Tao, to command an army on the march is to not contravene the proper measure of advancing and stopping, not miss the appropriate times for eating and drinking, and not completely exhaust the strength of the men and horses. These three are the means by which the troops can undertake the orders of their superiors. When the orders of superiors are followed, control is produced. If advancing and resting are not measured, if drinking and eating are not timely and appropriate, and if, when the horses are tired and the men weary, they are not allowed to relax in the encampment, then they will be unable to put the commander's orders into effect. When the commander's orders are thus disobeyed, when encamped, they will be in turmoil, and in battle they will be defeated. Wu-tzu said, in general, on the battlefield, soon to become a grave yard, if the soldiers are committed to fight to the death, they will live, whereas if they seek to stay alive, they will die. A good general will act as if they are in a sinking boat or trapped in a burning building. There is not enough time for the wise to make plans or the courageous to get angry. Only engaging the enemy will do. Thus it is said that the greatest harm that can befall the army's employment stems from hesitation, while the disasters that strike the three armies are born in doubt. Wu-tzu said, now men constantly perish from their inabilities and are defeated by the unfamiliar. Thus among the methods for using the military, training and causing them to be alert are first. One man who has been trained in warfare can instruct 10 men. 10 men who have studied warfare can train 100 men, and 100 such men can train 1,000. 1,000, 10,000, and 10,000 who have been trained in warfare can train the entire body of the three armies. With the nearby await the distant, with the well-ordered await the lay bored, with the surfeited await the hungry. Irupatti onravadu. Have them deploy in circular formations, then change to square ones. Have them sit, then get up. Move, then halt. Have them move to the left, then the right, forward and to the rear. Have them divide and combine, unite and disperse. When all these changes are familiar, provide them with weapons. These are what are termed the general's affairs. Wu-tzu said, the basic rule of warfare that should be taught is that men short in stature should carry spears and spear-tipped halberds, while the tall should carry bows and crossbows. 22. The strong should carry the flags and banners. The courageous should carry the bells and drums. The weak should serve in supply work, while the wise should supervise the planning. Districts and villages should be organized together, with squads of 5 and 10 forming the basis for mutual protection and guarantee. To a single drum beat they should prepare their weapons. To the double beat they should drill in various deployments. To a triple beat they should hasten to eat. To a quadruple beat they should have final inspection, and to a 5-beat cadence they should move out. Only after you hear the drums sound in unison should you raise the banners. Marcos Wu asked, is there a way, Tao, for advancing and halting the three armies? Wu Chai replied, do not confront heaven's furnace or dragon's head. Heaven's furnace is the mouth of a deep valley. Dragon's head is the base of a high mountain. You should keep the green dragon banner on the left, white tiger on the right, vermilion bird in the front, mysterious military to the rear, with Twinkler above from where military affairs will be controlled. When about to engage in combat, determine the wind's direction. If favorable, yell and follow it. If contrary, assume a solid formation and await the enemy. Marquis Wu asked, in general, are there methods for taking care of the chariots and cavalry? Irupatti Munravadu. Wu Chi replied, now the horses must be properly settled, with appropriate grass and water, and correct feeding, so as to be neither hungry nor full. In the winter they should have warm stables. In the summer, cool sheds. Their mane and hair should be kept trimmed and their hooves properly cared for. Blinders and ear protectors should be used so as to keep them from being startled and frightened. Practice their galloping and pursuit exercise constraint over their advancing and halting. Men and horses must be attached to each other. Only thereafter can they be employed. The equipment for the chariots and cavalry, such as saddles, bridles, bits, and reins, must all be complete and durable. Normally, the horses do not receive their injuries near the end of the battle, but invariably they are injured at the start. Similarly, they are not injured so much by hunger as by being overfed. When the sun is setting and the road long, the riders should frequently dismount, for it is better to have the men weary than to overlabor the horses. You should always direct movements so as to keep some strength in reserve against the enemy suddenly turning on us. Anyone who is clear about this can traverse the realm without hindrance. The Tao of the General. Wu-tzu said, "Now the commanding general of the three armies should combine both military and civilian abilities. The employment of soldiers requires uniting both hardness and softness. In general, when people discuss generalship, they usually focus on courage. However, courage is but one of a general's many characteristics, for the courageous will rashly join battle with the enemy. To rashly join battle with an enemy without knowing the advantages and disadvantages is not acceptable. Now the affairs to which the Jin Earl must pay careful attention. Arc 5. First, regulation. Second, prep. Oration. Third, commitment. Fourth, caution. And fifth, simplification. Regulation is governing the masses just as one controls a few. Preparation is going out the city gate as if seeing the enemy. Commitment means entering combat without any concern for life. Caution means that even after conquering, one maintains the same control and attitude as if just entering a battle. Simplification means the laws and orders are kept to a minimum and are not abrasive. To accept the mandate of command without ever declining, destroy the enemy, and only afterward speak about returning is the proper form of behavior for a general. Thus, when the army goes forth, his only thought should be of the glory that death will bring, not the shame of living. Wu-tzu said, in general, warfare has four vital points: qi, terrain, affairs, and strength. When the masses of the three armies, the million soldiers of the forces high, are strategically deployed in appropriate formations according to varying degrees of strength by one man, this is termed the vital point, qian of qi. When the road is narrow and the way perilous, when famous mountains present great obstacles, and if 10 men defend a place 1,000 cannot pass, this is termed a vital point, qi of earth. Being good at controlling clandestine operatives, with a few light troops harassing the enemy, causing them to scatter, and forcing rulers and ministers to feel mutual annoyance, and higher and lower ranks to reproach each other. This is termed the vital point, ka'chir of affairs. When the chariots have solid axles and secure pins, the boats have well-suited rudders and oars, the officers are thoroughly familiar with the fighting formations, and the horse is practiced in pursuit and maneuvers, this is termed the vital point, qi of strength. One who knows these four is qualified to be a general. However, his awesomeness, virtuates, benevolence, and courage must be sufficient to lead his subordinates and settle the masses. Furthermore, he must frighten the enemy and resolve doubts. When he issues orders, no one will dare disobey them. Wherever he may be, rebels will not dare oppose him. Gaining him, the state will grow strong. Losing him, the state will perish. This is what is referred to as a good general. Wu-tzu said, now the different drums, gongs, and bells are the means to awe the car. Flags and banners, pennants and standards the means to awe the eye. And prohibitions, orders, punishments, and fines the means to awe the mind. When the ear has been awestruck by sound, it cannot but be clear. When the eye has been awestruck by color, it cannot but be discriminating. When the mind has been awestruck by penalties, it cannot but be strict. If these three are not established, even though you have the support of the state, you will invariably be defeated by the enemy. Thus it is said that wherever the general's banners are, everyone will go, and wherever the general points, everyone will move forward, even unto lying into death. Irupattanangu. Wu-tzu said, in general, the essentials of battle are as follows. You must first attempt to divine 25, the enemy's general, and evaluate his talent. In accord with the situation, exploit the strategic imbalance of power, Cheyenne. Then you will not labor, but will still achieve results. A commanding general who is stupid and trusting can be deceived and entrapped. One who is greedy and unconcerned about reputation can be given gifts and bribed. One who easily changes his mind and lacks real plans can be labored and distressed. If the upper ranks are wealthy and arrogant while the lower ranks are poor and resentful, they can be separated and divided. If their advancing and withdrawing are often marked by doubt and the troops have no one to rely on, they can be shocked into running off. If the officers despise the commanding general and are intent on returning home, by blocking off the easy roads and leaving the treacherous ones open, they can be attacked and captured. If the terrain over which they advance is easy, but the road for withdrawal difficult, they can be forced to come forward. If the way to advance is difficult, but the road for retreating easy, they can be pressed and attacked. If they encamp on low wetlands where there is no way for the water to drain off, if heavy rain should fall several times, they can be flooded and drowned. If they make camp in a wild marsh or fields dense with a heavy tangle of grass and stalks, should violent winds frequently arise, you can burn the fields and destroy them. If they remain in camp for a long time, the generals and officers growing lax and lazy, the army becoming unprepared, you can sneak up and spring a surprise attack. Marquis Wu asked, when our two armies are confronting each other, but I do not know their general. If I want to fathom him, what methods are there? Wu Chi replied, order some courageous men from the lower ranks to lead some light shock troops to test him. When the enemy responds, they should concentrate on running off instead of trying to gain some objective. Then analyze the enemy's advance, whether their actions are such as sitting and standing are in unison and their organization well preserved. Whether when they pursue your retreat, they feign being unable to catch you, or when they perceive easy gain, they pretend not to realize it. A commander like this may be termed a wise general. Do not engage him in battle. If their troops approach yelling and screaming, their flags and pennants in confusion, while some of their units move of their own accord and others stop, some weapons held vertically, others horizontally. If they pursue our retreating troops as if they are afraid they will not reach us, or seeing advantage are afraid of not gaining it, this marks a stupid general. Even if his troops are numerous, they can be taken. 5. Responding to change. Marquis Wu asked, if the chariots are sturdy, the horses excellent, the generals courageous, and the soldiers strong, but when you suddenly encounter the enemy, they are thrown into turmoil and break formation, what can be done? Wu Chi replied, in general, it is a rule of battle that during daylight hours the flags, banners, pennants, and standards provide the measure, while at night the gongs, drums, pipes, and whistles provide the constraints. 26. When left is signaled, they should go left. When right, then right. When the drum is beaten, they should advance. When the gongs sound, they should halt. At the first blowing, they should form ranks. At the second, assemble together. Execute anyone who does not follow the orders. When the three armies submit to your awesomeness, and the officers and soldiers obey commands, then in combat no enemy will be stronger than you, nor will any defenses remain impenetrable to your attack. Marquis Wu asked, "If the enemy is numerous while we are few, what can I do?" Wu-Chi replied, "Avoid them on easy terrain, attack them in narrow quarters. Thus it is said, for one to attack 10, nothing is better than a narrow defile. For 10 to attack 100, nothing is better than a deep ray vine. For 1,000 to attack 10,000, nothing is better than a Dan Giraud's pass. Now if you have a small number of troops, should they suddenly arise, striking the gongs and beating the drums, to attack the enemy on a confined road, then even though his numbers are very great, they will all be startled and move about. Thus it is said, when employing larger numbers, concentrate on easy terrain. When using small numbers, concentrate on naturally confined terrain." Marquis Wu asked, "Their forces are extremely numerous, martial, and courageous. Behind them are ravines and dangerous passes. On their right mountains, on the left a river. They have deep moats and high ramparts, an arc defending their position with strong crossbowmen. Their withdrawal is like a mountain moving, their advance like a tempest. As their food stocks are also plentiful, it will be difficult to defend against them for very long. What should be done?" Wu-Chi replied, "A great question indeed. This is not a problem of the strength of chariots and cavalry 28, but of having the plans of a sage. If you can prepare 1,000 chariots and 10,000 cavalry and support them with foot soldiers, you can divide them into 5 armies, each one traversing a different route. Now if the 5 armies simultaneously move along 5 different routes, the enemy will certainly be confused and will not know where to concentrate his efforts. If the enemy fortified his defenses in order to solidify his troops, quickly dispatch spies in order to observe their plans. If they listen to our persuasions, they will abandon their positions and depart. If they do not listen to our persuasions, they will kill our emissaries and burn the treatise. Then divide your forces and engage them in 5 battles. However, if you win any of the battles, do not pursue the retreating enemy. If you do not win, then withdraw in extreme haste, thereby feigning a retreat. After reforming, swiftly attack them, with one force tying them up in the front, another cutting off their rear, while 2 of your armies move silently to the left and right flanks to suddenly attack them. If the 5 armies strike simultaneously, they will certainly gain the advantage. This is the way, Tao, for attacking the strong." Marquis Wu asked, "The enemy is nearby, pressing us. Even if I want to retreat, there is no road. My soldiers are terrified. What can one do?" Wu-Chi replied, "The technique for dealing with this is as follows. If your troops are numerous and his few, divide them and attack. If, on the contrary, his troops are numerous and yours few, then use improvised measures to harry him, never giving him any rest. Then, even though he is numerous, he can be forced to submit." Marquis Wu asked, "If I encounter the enemy in a deep valley where gorges and defiles abound to the sides, while his troops are numerous and ours few, what should I do?" Wu-Chi replied, "Traverse hilly regions, forests, valleys, deep mountains, and vast wetlands quickly. Departing from them post haste. Do not be dilatory. If in high mountains or a deep valley, the armies should suddenly counter each other, you should first beat the drums and set up a clamor, taking advantage of it to advance your archers and crossbowmen, both shooting the enemy and taking prisoners. Carefully investigate their degree of control. If they are confused, then attack without doubt." Marquis Wu asked, "On the left and right are high mountains, while the land is extremely narrow and confined. If when we meet the enemy we dare not attack them, yet cannot escape, what shall we do?" Wu-Chi replied, "This is referred to as valley warfare. Even if your troops are numerous, they are useless. Summon your talented officers to confront the enemy. the nimble-footed and the sharpest weapons to be at the forefront. Divide your chariots and array your cavalry, concealing them on all four sides. Several lie apart so that they will not show their weapons. The enemy will certainly assume a solid defensive formation, not daring either to advance or retreat. Thereupon display your flags and array your banners, withdraw outside the mountains, and encamp. The enemy will invariably be frightened, and your chariots and cavalry should then harass them, not permitting them any rest. This is the Wei-Tao for valley warfare. Marquis Wu asked, if we encounter the enemy in a vast watery marsh, where the chariot wheels sink down to the point that the shafts are under water, our chariots and cavalry are floundering, and we have not prepared any boats or oars, so we cannot advance or retreat, what should we do? Wu-Chi replied, this is referred to as water warfare. Do not employ chariots or cavalry, but have them remain on the side. Mount some nearby height and look all about. You must ascertain the water's condition, know its expanse, and fathom its depth. Then you can conceive an unorthodox stratagem for victory. If the enemy begins crossing the water, press them when half have crossed. Marquis Wu asked, when it has been continuously raining for a long time, so the horses sink into the mire and the chariots are stuck, while we are under enemy attack on all four sides, and the three armies are terrified, what should I do? Wu-Chi replied, in general desist from employing chariots when the weather is rainy and the land wet, but mobilize them when it is hot and dry. Value high terrain, disdain low ground. When racing your strong chariots, whether advancing or halting, you must adhere to the road. If the enemy arises, be sure to follow their tracks. Marquis Wu asked, if a savage raiding force suddenly appears, plundering our lands and fields, seizing our cattle and horses, what should I do? Wu-Chi replied, when a savage raiding force appears, you must care. Fully consider its strength and well maintain your defensive position. Do not respond to their attacks by going out to engage them. When they are about to withdraw at the end of the day, their packs will certainly be heavy and their hearts will invariably be afraid. In withdrawing, they will concentrate on speed and inevitably there will be stragglers. You should then pursue and attack them, and their troops can be overcome. Wu-Tzu said, now as to the way, Tao, for attacking the enemy and besieging his cities, after his cities and towns have already been shattered, enter each of the palaces, take control of their bureaucrats, and collect their implements of administration. However, wherever your army goes, do not cut down the trees, destroy houses, take the grain, slaughter the animals, or burn their supplies. Thus you will show the populace that you do not harbor choose intentions except those who seek to surrender and settle them. 6. Stimulating the officers. Marquis Wu asked, is making punishment severe and rewards clear adequate for victory? Wu-Chi replied, oh, as to these matters of severity and clarity, I do not have all the answers. Even so, they are not what can be relied on. Now if, when you issue commands and promulgate orders, the people take pleasure in hearing them, when you raise the army and mobilize the masses, the people take pleasure in battle, and when the weapons clash and blades cross, the people take pleasure in death, then these three are what a ruler of men can rely on. Marquis Wu asked, how does one attain this result? Wu-Chi answered, you should identify men of accomplishment and honor them with a grand feast, while also stimulating those who failed to accomplish anything notable. Thereupon Marquis Wu had sitting mats set out in the ancestral temple hall, arrayed into 3 rows, and held a feast for the officers and chief officials. Those distinguished by their achievements sat in the front row and were feasted with the finest foods together with 3 meats, served on the most valuable dishes. Those who ranked next in accomplishment sat in the middle row, and were feasted with fine food served on less lavish vessels. Those who had not accomplished anything noteworthy sat in the last row, and were feasted with fine food served on ordinary utensils. When the feast was over and they came out, he also honored the parents and families of the meritorious outside the temple gate, again according to their accomplishments. He annually sent emissaries to call on the families of those who had died in the service of the country, bestowing aid on their parents. By so doing he showed that they would not be forgotten. After he had performed these actions for 3 years, Chi'in happened to mobilize its army and approach the West River commandery. When Wei's officers heard about it, those that buckled on their armor and enthusiastically attacked them without waiting for any orders from their superiors. Numb, bred in the tens of thousands. Marquis Wu summoned Wu Qi and said, "Your previous instructions have all been effected." Wu Qi replied, "I have heard that men have strengths and weaknesses, that their chi flourishes and ebbs. If your lordship is willing to test 50,000 previously undistinguished men, I would like to lead them to engage the enemy. If Chi'in is not victorious, it will be laughed at by the feudal lords and lose the balance of authority Chi'in over the world. Irupati Wanbadavada. Now if there is a murderous villain hidden in the woods, even though 1,000 men pursue him, they all look around like owls and glance about like wolves. Why? They are afraid that violence will erupt and harm them personally. Thus, one man oblivious to life and death can frighten 1,000. Now, if I can take a mass of 50,000 and turn them into a single murderous villain, leading them to punish Qin, we will surely make it difficult for the enemy. Thereupon Marquis Wu assented to his plan, granting him another 500 strong chariots and 3,000 cavalry. They destroyed Chi'in's 500,000-man army as a result of this policy to encourage the officers. The day before the battle, Wu Qi spoke to the 3 armies. All the aides and officers must confront, follow, and capture the enemy's chariots, cavalry, and infantry. If the chariots do not make prisoners of the enemy's chariots, the cavalry does not make prisoners of the enemy's cavalry, and the infantry does not take the enemy's infantry, then even if we forge an overwhelming victory, no one will be credited with any achievements. Thus, on the day of the battle, his orders were not onerous, but his awesomeness shook the world.